Hello class, let's talk about nonverbal communication. What is it? Nonverbal communication is communicating without words through facial expressions, body movements, tone, space, and artifacts. So one example would be rolling your eyes, or another example might be shrugging your shoulders, or another example might be turning your back. Those are all considered to be nonverbal communication. So when we consider verbal versus nonverbal communication, we think about right brain, left brain, right? The right brain is all of the creativity, and the left brain is where we do a lot of our analysis. So nonverbal expressions expresses emotions more, lacks grammar, and even animals use nonverbal communication. When a dog's wagging its tail, think about that. And so here's an example in terms of a child. A child can't use words, but when they cry, or they may smile at you, or they may point to some food, they are communicating their needs non-verbally. So let's discuss some principles of nonverbal communication. So we convey more meaning than words in nonverbal communication. And we use nonverbal communication about 65% more than we use verbal communication. This is why it's important to watch body language. Nonverbal communication is harder to fake because it's often involuntary. We cut our eyes, we turn our head. Sometimes, even when we look, we may narrow our eyes. That can be involuntary. Nonverbal communication is more ambiguous. It's not universal because there's no real dictionary for gestures, right? I mean, in one country, a gesture might mean one thing, and then in another country, it might mean another. And more nonverbals are more credible. We kind of take a look at the body language of a person when they're speaking to see if it matches what they're saying. So, for example, someone says, I'm fine, but their body language says otherwise. Maybe their shoulders are slumped, or maybe they bow their head. So, let's look at some functions of nonverbal communication. So, number one is when we reinforce. So, when we might be saying something and we nod our head at the same time, that means yes, but it's pronounced by the body language. Then we may substitute a thumbs up instead of words. We may contradict. We might say, I'm fine, but our posture might be stiff, our shoulders might be hunched, our head might be down. We may not give eye contact. In number four, influence, tone and openness persuade, right? So when we think about the tone, when someone's speaking and the openness, we can see that the nonverbals are speaking. And then we regulate, which means we either give eye contact or signals or turn taking. That's called regulate. And then we relate, maybe with a hug or something that shows empathy. And then we identify. And this is where we might choose clothing or might choose the environment that reflects our identity. So, types of nonverbal communication codes. Um, and so, gestures, facial expressions, posture, eye contact and gaze, um, touch, friendly, professional, intimate, space, intimate, personal, social, or public, and then clothing, objects, and accessories, and then time, punctuality, response, and speed. Notice that your textbook has very specific words for these things. So take a look at those words, apply them to those specific words, and because you may find that in your quiz. Mehrabian's 70-38-55 rule says this: feelings conveyed through words are 7%. That's the 7 right there. Through tone, 38%. And through facial expression, 55%. This applies when words conflict with our tone and expression. So, for example, I might say, I'm really excited. Yet my tone was flat. Instead of saying, oh, I'm really excited. There's the difference. So here's some tips to improve nonverbal competence. Be aware. Be self-aware. Think about your posture, your gestures, and your tone. Are you constantly hunched? Do you constantly not make eye contact? Or if you're speaking to someone, do they do the same? Match the nonverbal cues with the intended message. So if someone says, I'm fine, but their body language says otherwise, then you might choose to be more aware. Adapt to cultural norms. So they say when you're in Rome, you do as the Romans do. When you're in the UK or when you're in the US or Canada, you might notice that nonverbals are quite different. Observe others' nonverbal signals. This is a way to become competent when it comes to understanding and improving nonverbal communication. So, in summary, nonverbal communication is powerful and is often unconscious. Nonverbal communication works alongside and sometimes against words. Nonverbal communication and you can be skilled in nonverbals and you can build credibility, empathy, and connection. So think about these things. Think about a time when you received mixed nonverbal signals. How did you interpret them? If someone said they're fine, but their body language didn't look fine, did you just take the person at their word, or did you delve deeper? And then the second question is, how can awareness of your own nonverbals improve your own communication? So that's the end of this lecture. Take a look at the text and read that so that it can match the lecture. And I'll see you in the next module. Take care.